Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of the Feeling and Healing podcast. I am your host, Danielle Z, MFT in the making, motivator, and mental health maven. And today I am so excited to have Stacy join me. She is a career ownership coach, and she's also the owner of the Entrepreneur Source. So thank you, Stacy, for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's so great to be here, Danielle.
Yeah, so okay. And I don't want to like bring up, I'm very big on, keeping things positive and moving forward, but I mean, we live in society, right? There's realities, and right now I think a perfect subject to talk about is how people are taking ownership of their careers given the job market climate. I know it's not great, and all of us can't be, as lucky as us to be entrepreneurs, but tell me a little bit about the work that you do with your clients and why it's so important to, really be in the driver's seat of your career and take it obviously very seriously.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of us can relate to that feeling kind of buffeted by
Yeah.
corporate America and kind of pushed around maybe sometimes. And what I work with my clients on is how do you make your career work for you?
Hmm.
And really, uh, the methods that we use to do that are by taking some time to really understand your goals, your income, lifestyle, wealth, equity goals. Where are
Yeah.
you and your family headed? And is the career going to get you there or not? So sometimes in that process of sitting down and thinking about our goals, we realize we want to go here, to A, and our career is taking us to Z. So that misalignment, how do we kind of realign, find something that that helps you get to your success and your happy place on the horizon.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that what you do right now is so valuable for people, because I'll even share in my journey, we were literally just talking about this right before we start press record, is, this it's a process to really figure out like what you truly want, and if your career is in that, as you said, in that direction. Like I'll share, and I think I shared with this with you when we first spoke, like my career was not headed towards my like due north. So I literally, when I was 35 years old, had to say, all right, Danielle, we gotta literally change like full direction, and
Uh-huh.
it was not, and it didn't happen overnight. This choice wasn't like, oh yeah, like I woke up the next morning and was like, I want to become a coach and a therapist. Let me just snap my fingers, snap my fingers, and I'm
Right,
that.
right.
So I do want to validate for everybody. It is, I'm sure, and as you know, working with your clients, it's a process,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And often we'll go through those really hard times. We may have a really terrible boss or a really horrible project or teammate or layoff that make us think, okay, hang on, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
is there a different, like, what am I doing? And so I think when life gives us those bumps in the road, if we take advantage of them, right, to go, okay, let's just do a little assessment here. Am I on the right track or not? Sometimes they're a really great opportunity to go, nope, I need to make a pivot. Or my goals now in this season of my life were really different than when I started this journey. And it's okay to make a change or do a full reassessment, right?
yeah. No, and I love that you said that because I feel like we live in a society, like I always say this to people, like, and I say this as a coach and especially as a therapist with healing, but progress is not always linear. And I think we're
Hmm.
taught as like in a society that like, oh yeah, like is like you're supposed, especially in the corporate world, right? You're supposed to go from like individual contributor to manager to VP, like
Right.
climbing up that ladder, and that's not always the way it goes, you know?
Yeah. Or sometimes we start up the ladder and go, oh, you know what? I don't really like this. This
Yeah,
isn't
yeah.
really
It doesn't
my
feel right.
thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes I think you're absolutely right. We get stuck in these tracks, and then it's really awkward and hard to say, I don't want this anymore. This isn't me. Because shouldn't we want that? Shouldn't we want the bigger title and the more money or the bigger office or whatever those things
Yeah.
are? And I see this all the time with my clients when we take a moment to go, okay, no, wait, like that's maybe what your corporation says is
Yes.
success, society says is success, or even your family is defining. How are you defining
Mhm.
success? And that might be less business travel, getting to unplug at 5 or 6 p.m.,
Yeah.
not working a weekend. Like there may be some trade-offs that you're willing to make and just don't know, okay, how do I start making that shift? What does that look like? And how do I explain that to people so they don't think that I'm, you know, gone overboard, right?
Yeah,
So
no.
that
And
can be
that's
challenging.
yeah, I mean, I love that you brought that up that you have to sometimes like have a justification for like doing what you want. And it's like, why
Mhm.
can't just the justification be like, I want this for my
It
life?
makes me happy, right?
Yeah, yeah, it
Like
gives me
I'm
joy.
trading
Like
this.
it makes me a healthier person. It makes me a better mom. It makes me a better fill in the blank. Makes me a better employee. I don't know. Makes me a better boss. Makes me a better leader. Yeah, I find that, and I'm sure you know from working with their clients, as do I, also as members of this society, we live in like that capitalistic hustle culture, which
Hmm.
I'm very happy to see kind of, I see it dismantling. I'm not sure what you, if you feel the same, but I'm
Yeah.
kind of seeing it dismantling, and it's really refreshing to see because like we're not built to always be working and always be pushing and
Yeah. Well, and I think the benefit for being in that culture has really shifted. So it used to
hmm
be that you gave so much of your time, right? So much of your energy, and you got a big pension, or your
yeah,
company took care of you, or you could work there for 40 years and retire. But now we're seeing like the demand is still there. We still want you to work all those hours and give so much of yourself. But when push comes to shove, right, you're still a number and they might get rid of you. Or they might cut your benefits or cut retirement. And so I think people are starting to come to like, well, if I'm going to put all this in,
absolutely, yeah,
what am I getting out? Like, what if I put this in, but for myself? Like, instead of making this other guy rich, could I work on my longevity, my legacy, um,
exactly.
my equity for my family, right? And in the meantime, feel like I'm in control and have some choice over what I do day to day, too.
Yeah, I think that's the struggle, and that's I'm sure you would love you to share your perspective too, but I've shared with you is that's what led me to like entrepreneurship, which I would always tell my clients too, because I work with a lot of people in corporate. I also work with entrepreneurs, but I always tell them like I'm not telling you to quit your job. Like that was
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
answer, like my in my career, like but like
Uh-huh.
you don't have to follow my lead. Like entrepreneurship, as you know, is not for everybody. It's a very I always say I use the metaphor of like it's like a roller coaster ride that you like didn't really get on like if you didn't sign up for it but you're on this roller coaster ride. It's like but like you're like sometimes you're like I like it, sometimes you're like I don't like it, but like you don't ever want to get off of it if that makes sense. Like
Uh-huh.
you're like
Uh-huh.
I'm on this ride, like some days are great, some days like you're on top of the world, some days you're like why did I do this? But then you're like I wouldn't have it any other way.
Right,
You
right.
know.
Yes, right. And I think there's lots of data too to suggest like often entrepreneurs, for as hectic as life might be, would never go back, right? Like
No,
that they
yeah.
are happier and healthier. But it isn't for everybody. I
Yeah.
think what I do in my practice is really highlight that there's really more than one way to get
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
success, right? And it's a lie that we tend to believe that there's one
Yes,
track for us.
exactly.
And when our eyes are kind of open to like, oh no, wait, people are making life happen in a number of ways. Maybe it's a job and a business to feel a little more stable or secure. or a creative outlet plus a
Exactly.
job plus a, whatever that is, then I think I see people become more empowered
Mhm.
with, okay, I can choose to go into work and work like this, or I can choose not to, but it's really my choice. Nobody's
Yeah,
making me
like
do it,
bringing,
right?
yeah.
I'm owning my career. I'm in the driver's seat, not
I think
somebody
that's
else.
another thing too. It's very, and I will be there because I was there. I'll be honest with you, Stacey. Like, when you get, like kind of like we are conditioned to think like, oh yeah, you have to go out, go to college, get the job, and
Mhm.
then you just work, like, and that's where I know like I'll share my dad is like part of the boomer generation, and that's what they did. You know what I mean? And
Yep, yep.
but now as the younger generations are coming up, I kind of like how they're breaking the mold and they're even I mean every generation has their positive and negatives. I'm not like saying like like there's me as a millennial and me being a Gen Y millennial. I know my generation has we have both our positive attributes and our negative ones, so
Hmm.
every
Hmm.
generation does, but I really do I think it's very refreshing that this younger generation is kind of
Yeah,
testing the status quo a little bit. Like I was just talking to actually an old boss of mine last night when I was she still works in marketing. When I was working in marketing, she was one of my leaders and she told me the same thing. She's like, Danielle, she's like, I think it's great. Like, like these
yeah,
younger generation, they're like, we're not putting up, excuse my French, we're not putting up with the shit that our parents did, that they're give
yeah,
their whole
yeah,
lives. And as you said, like at the
yeah,
end of the day, they're like, oh
yeah.
yeah, bye. Like
What
after
did I get for it? Yeah, I get laid off, 2 years before
your
retirement and I'm
retirement.
stuck. Yeah,
Exactly.
right. Well, that's what I think. I I'm Gen X. You're millennial. And when we talk to, Gen Zers, like I think they are like they're getting smarter, right? Because
Yes.
I've
Yes.
talked to younger people. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I was there at like 48, 49,
Yeah,
50,
but
and
they're
you
like they're in their 20s. Yeah.
the light bulb's coming on for you at 25, like awesome." um and I think that's good and healthy to think about, what is work going to do for me,
Hmm.
and that is a big shift for, us older people, is like, oh, yeah, work is supposed to work for us, not the other way around,
Yeah.
because we're
Yeah.
not getting any of those benefits anymore.
Yeah,
um
absolutely.
so how do you turn the tables? Yeah,
Yeah, for sure. And I think like that's another thing like I would love to talk to you about because thinking as like as a relational person, as like a very systemic thinker, like I think our even relationship with work is
yeah,
shifting
yeah.
these last couple years. Obviously we can take the biggest like elephant in the room, I guess, is like what COVID taught us about, you know what I mean, like with
Yeah.
work from home and the flexibility. And
Yeah.
I think this is just what I feel like. I mean, I went when I became an entrepreneur, like I there were many reasons why, but my purpose and my, my for my life, my calling, I finally found it. So I wanted to start something that
Hmm.
was
Hmm.
aligned with my core self. But also, too, one of the things I love about entrepreneurship that I'm sure you share with me is the flexibility.
Yeah.
Like, like I am my own boss. I can
Hmm.
say, yeah, after this podcast episode, I can clock out. Like, but then I got also too, I have also read things on like Instagram and Facebook. They're like, yeah, I quit my 9 to 5 to like work, like, because when you're an entrepreneur, like we were just talking, like it's just nonstop. So it's really
Right.
I guess my question for you is maybe this is a
Hmm.
selfish question for my that I'll be asking my for myself is like how do you work with your clients or how do you work with people that like it's hard for them to like they have such a rigid or such a strong relationship with their work that it's almost part of their identity that like how
Yeah.
do you like
Yeah.
kind of like help them be gentler with that and be like it's okay like you
Yeah.
don't always have to work
Yeah.
like it's okay.
Right. Right. That is, I mean, that's a huge
It is.
block for a lot of people. And I think for some folks, it can feel really freeing to think about, like, oh, how do I define my own success? How do I set my goals and then find a career to match my goals? Like that can be super empowering. For other people, they're like, but who am I if I'm not this
Mm.
job title? Or if I'm not in this industry? Like, this is how people know me. Like, this is how I know myself. And I challenge that a lot. But for some people, I mean, honestly, like that is how they're defining success by those job titles and those, so I'm like, okay, this doesn't look like this is the best life to lead, but like you're the owner of your career, right? And so I think for some that even that process or that thought process, I might need to let this go or hold it loosely is too scary, right? And I
Hmm.
see them pull
Hmm.
out of I don't want to meet with you anymore. I don't want to coach. But for other people who can push through, then it's like, oh, like they kind of come through the bubble and it's like, oh yeah, okay, life could be different. I could have that life or I could have something else or a third option that no one's ever really talked about or invented yet.
Yeah.
And it's super exciting. But then also dealing with, your parents or your spouse or your coworkers who say, like, wait, what are you gonna do?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
now
yeah.
you're gonna, like, what? You're gonna open a business? Like, what are you doing? Um, so for the folks I work with, I think kind of coming back to why, what's your why? What
Hmm.
is the goal? What is really the reason for change? Do
Yes.
you have a super good reason to change? And when we find that, like when we hit that gold nugget, then it's really easy to talk about. But the process of
Oh,
getting
yeah.
down to that is terrifying for some, right?
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I think there's a level of, like there's a level of self-reflection,
Yeah. Yeah.
like when it was, I sometimes ask my clients, like they come to me and I'm like, when was the last time somebody even asked you what you want out of your life?
Right.
Like, because
And like, oh, when I was 16 and took a
yeah,
quiz,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Because we assume as we get older, I feel like men and women, like we just assume more
Mhm.
roles, right? Like whether it be
Yeah.
a role at
Yeah.
work, whether it be a spouse, whether it be whatever, a father, mother, we just pile on the responsibilities that like
Yeah.
we kind of get like our sense of self gets lost. And I would also love to know your thoughts on because it for me, as I said, like I found this like calling. I've always like really had this like drive to like help people. Like even when I worked in
Yeah.
marketing, I was like
Yeah.
always like that really like team player. And I guess like how do you because and that's the thing too, like it also gives me great joy.
Yeah.
However, there also is that I have to get really good at setting boundaries because
Hmm.
when you do, I think heart-centered work or purposeful work, or as you said, like your why work, it
Hmm.
you're very ingrained in it. It's
Right.
not just
Right.
your, you know what I mean? Like, so how do you, I guess, like work with your clients to kind of balance that, like, so they're not like emotionally drained or physically drained all the time because it could wear on you.
Yeah. Yeah. It really can. Well, and I talk to a lot of people that is missing in their current
Okay.
situation, right? Like that they're missing, I'm not making an impact. I'm not
Mm,
building anything. I don't see anything changing or improving because I was here. Or I used to see that and now I don't see that. And I don't like that. And so we talk a lot about like that impact, but also your legacy, right?
yes,
Like, do you
yes.
want to leave things better than when you came?
I
And
love that.
that that has different motivation. I want to mentor people in my field, or I want to leave
Yeah.
something for my kids, or whatever that is that's motivating them. But again, I think like when we tap into that, then we start to see like the flowers blooming, right?
Yeah,
That can get, yeah, that can be
absolutely.
so exciting that then you're exhausted, right?
Yeah.
Like
Well,
you,
it's ironic that you brought that up because literally this morning I was actually recording another podcast with a woman. Her name's Debbie Simmons, and she owns a company called Anchor Point, and she's also a coach, but she's a legacy architect, and she works with clients
uh-huh, uh-huh,
to build their legacy. And it's so true that I don't, and maybe this is just my opinion, but it's my podcast. I can say whatever I want. That like I don't care how much money you leave to, your children or your like, whatever you're after you go. Like how you moved through this world, how you conducted yourself, like that that I always say that like that lasting impression you leave on
Yeah,
people, like
yeah,
that's
yeah,
really what you leave. Like, and that you
yeah.
can't put a dollar amount on that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I read this article a while ago and it was talking about like health. If you want to live to be 100 years old, you
Yes.
don't decide you want to be 100 years old when you're like 90, right?
No, no,
Like
you decide like, yeah,
you
like
you got
probably
to
like
decide like
pretty,
when you're like 40 or 50
yeah, to
and
like
then you
to build
do
up to that.
things
Yeah.
to be 100. And so sometimes that's kind of fun to do in our careers too, right? Like
Like
when
how
when
long
I when I retire or when I, at my funeral, what are people gonna say? And then, okay, how do we work
back
backwards
into
to
that.
make
I
that
love that
happen?
perspective. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great perspective.
And that's kind of, that can be really, really exciting. And, people get into that exercise too. And they're like, oh, some of my mentees have said this or that. I want more of that. I want that for my
Yeah.
family too. It's like, okay, great. How do we design that? I love the
Yeah.
idea of a legacy architect, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
that's
exactly. Yeah.
exciting.
And I love that you incorporated like I think like we think of obviously career like vocation, but like
Mhm.
you are like people in just general are multifaceted. We
Yeah,
can gain things from our personal lives, from our friendships. Like I think sometimes too there is a lot of emphasis on our career because the thing about it, we spend a lot of our
right.
our life working, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's why I always tell people like choose something that you like to do because you're gonna spend a lot of time
A
doing it.
lot of time doing it.
But like I think we also too, like I think you said, I forgive me, previous in our conversation, but I think I recall you saying like it's okay to go to different outlets, like, not just you. Like it's actually funny. I was
Yeah,
talking to a similar coach that does similar work that you do, and she basically was like she's very her like philosophy is like work with like some with if you work for a company like that's a contract. She's like you can't expect them to like take emotionally take care of you. And I'm like, all right, I
yeah,
kind of see where you're coming from. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
at the end
yeah.
of the day, it is a business contract.
Uh-huh.
But then again, like it's like, but then you're expecting like so much of these people and their livelihood
Yeah.
and hours of their day. And I always say time is the one
Hmm.
asset I can't get back. Like money I
You
can always
can't
make
make
more
more
of.
of,
Yeah, like
right?
time,
Yeah.
there are only withdrawals out of my time bank
Hmm.
account. So
Hmm.
I want to use my time waste like wisely, which is why I like I will say, not to say as a I get very frustrated when people, places, things, company, when people waste my time because I'm like, oh, like I can't get that minute back. Like, I'm not to the point of like, being furious, but I'm just like, oh, like, like
Okay.
yeah, like use your time wisely.
Hmm. Yeah, well, and I think like, when we get married, we don't cut off all our friends and family and
That's a
only be with our spouse,
that's a
right?
great
Like
point. Yeah.
you still need girlfriends that do certain
Yes,
things and cousins and aunties and all these people in your life to feel like you have a well-rounded life. And I think
absolutely.
sometimes we expect our careers like, okay, do everything for me. Be
Yes.
my creative outlet, let me make impact, let me make some money, give me my schedule back. And sometimes it's really when I'm talking to people, I'm like, it sounds like you're in a good place. We just need maybe a little something extra that
Yeah.
gives you that outlet for whatever, to build, to create, to earn extra money, whatever that is. Let's get creative about identifying those things, and give our brains lots of different options to
Yeah.
plug into.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right, because it doesn't always, I think that's like the most maybe like natural place to place it is like, is your career, right? Like that's the easiest
Right,
place to be
right.
like, oh, I'll find it in my job. But like it could come from parenting. It could come from like, like, I don't
A
know, like for me,
volunteer work. Yep.
exactly, exactly. Like for
And
me
art
personally,
outlet. Yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah.
like I like I find like I think like I like helping is just like my thing, but like I've actually recently found like a newfound being like an entrepreneur. I never thought this would be me. Like I live in a small little community, but like I found kind of like maybe potentially like just like community driven work, you know what I mean? Like to
Yeah.
help my
Hmm.
community out and that's like where I like, can bring like I can be with people and work kind of similar to like how
Yeah.
you would work on a
Yeah.
team if you were like in a corporate job, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like little things like that, just taking notice of it and being aware of it and being
Hmm.
like, no, like, and I think when it comes down to it, Stacy, and like this is like what I and like my clinical director at my internship site for for my therapy practice. He drills into us because it as therapists, we always focus on impact. So
Yeah.
what experience you're going through, what impact does it have on you? Like that is the
Hmm.
most powerful like question you could ask a client. And I think that at the
Yeah.
end of the day, that's all of us humans doing all the kinds of work that we do, living our lives. I think that at the end of the day, that we all want to make an impact on the
Yeah.
world.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and I think for some folks, like they might have felt like they had that in a certain role or a certain department, and then when they get reorg or promoted out of it, then it goes away.
Hmm.
And even taking a minute, and then they're unhappy. And so sitting for a minute with like, well, okay, what changed? Sometimes even just identifying, I really want to be in this type of environment around these types of folks that I can do my thing with, right? That I can be with. And once you identify some of those trends or those like environmental th systemic things that you need in your life, well, you can really get that from a number of places, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be just one certain job title. You can get those things around or build that for
Yourself.
yourself. Hmm.
Exactly. And that's kind of how you, I guess, like how you kind of take it's almost ironic that you kind of have to like let go of your like maybe like loosen your
Yeah.
relationship with work a little bit to like really take control of it. You
Hmm.
would think you want to
Hmm.
like pile more or shift or what have you, but that's what I've found. If you do let go of it a little bit, whatever said thing is, it doesn't have to be work, but
Yeah.
if you stop like focusing on it, like if you just take a couple steps back and look a little wider, you're like, oh, like I can see
Oh, wait
kind
a
of how
minute.
like the
Right.
puzzle,
There's a bunch of
yeah,
different ways to
yeah, like
get there. We
exactly.
don't
Like
just have
there's a
to
bunch of
take the
different pieces here,
highway,
not just
right?
this one piece, you know what I mean? Like, and that's like, I mean, that's with anything in life. But as you said, like this is a process and this is something
Hmm.
that I mean, in my personal experience, this does not happen overnight. And I thank
Yeah.
my lucky stars, Stacey. I thank like all every day. I'm like, I say it. Like I'm like, I am just so lucky because I have a feeling, and I'm sure you would agree that and this breaks my heart that there's just a lot of people that are gonna live their whole entire lives and like just like in a career that was not like what
Yeah.
they wanted or not
Yeah.
like not their
Yeah.
purpose, not their calling, like, and
Hmm.
they
Hmm.
just did it because, that's what society says. And,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what I get it. There are so many things, and that's the thing I think too. There's so many things tied to your job and your vocation that, of course, financial is a huge thing. I mean,
Hmm.
benefits
Hmm.
are a huge thing. Like,
Hmm. Hmm.
it's not to be taken that like you get nothing when you know what I mean?
Right.
You need to like,
Right.
make a living, but I think that we're at a very interesting shift in the career space, if you will. And with corporate America.
Hmm.
That environment is interesting to say the least.
Yeah. Well, and I like the idea too of people doing some exploration. Like it's never a bad time to do some
Yeah,
exploration, even if you go, okay, I got to stay in this job or I got to take this corporate job as my short-term plan
yeah,
because my long-term, I've determined this, right? And I'm going to work towards some longer term goal. And again, it's kind of unbuckling the shackles, right? Like I am in charge. I'm deciding to do it this way because I'm going that way,
Yeah.
right? That I see something in my future that I can work towards. And so I think, yeah, when we can take a moment, use some of that strategizing energy on ourselves that gets used up on our teams and our families, our kids,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
when we can turn that in on ourselves, like often that is, could be really life-giving.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Really, really life-giving. Yeah.
Yeah, I just actually posted on Instagram today like a reel and I was like, how can you expect a return on your life? Like whether that whatever return you'd be. For me, it's always like my growth or my personal development or like I can't expect to grow if I don't invest in myself. And whatever that means
Not
for you.
putting anything in there.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
exactly, like whatever that means for you. For me, that means therapy, that means mindset work, that means journaling, that means,
Hmm.
doing all the things. Like I could go on for days. Like my supervisor at my internship site is like, Danielle, she's like, is there any time you're not working on yourself? I'm like, I don't think so. I'm like, like I was like, but this is the path I've chosen, and but like that's my legacy. Like and I'm not saying I
Yeah.
want people when I'm not on this world, there are qualities that I want people to remember me as, and one of them
Yeah.
isn't going like, but it's just important to me. Like for
Hmm.
my relationship with myself, it's important for me to always grow. Like for instance, as we were on this podcast, and because we live in the world we live in, and I got a text message from somebody and they're like, "You've really changed." And I'm like, "Yeah." Like my mind, like I kind of saw it out of the corner of my eye and it went, well, the notification came up and then it went away. But like then in my mind, I'm like, "Yeah, like that's the point of life is to change and
Right.
grow." And
Right.
that's another thing in our careers, I think generationally, we're taught like, and then I don't know what the statistic is, but of how many people change their like the amount of times people change their career in their like
Hmm.
lifespan.
Hmm.
Like I think it's like 4 or 5. I think I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
It could be more. It could be less. Maybe a little. It's definitely
That
more
sounds
than
right.
two.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but so like it's. I feel like we have this like kind of, especially when it comes to career, like a career, like we have this like, oh, but you're changing. It's like, yeah, like I'm allowed to change my career. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I think sometimes we feel guilty. Like I get people who will tell me, I'm kind of bored. Like I'm sort of
Mhm.
bored. But they feel like they shouldn't be bored because they're getting a nice paycheck and they're in a good
Yeah,
environment and all these things. But they're like, you know, I
not
I
challenging them.
learned how to do it. I've mastered it. I'm a little bored. And it's like, okay, let's
Yeah,
find a new mountain. And for some of those folks, it's like, okay, do you need like an extracurricular
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
is occupying, right? And like, oh, there's my challenge. Or is it like, nope, we got to find a new base camp and get you on a bigger mountain to start working towards summiting that? Because, if we're bored, we're not engaged, we're not being
Yeah.
our full selves, we're not, even if everything seems okay, it's really not.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I will tell you from my own journey of healing, growth, whatever, like if you aren't okay and like you're not good, like because like everybody in life has had their ups and downs, like you're everything else, if you're not right, like everything else will crumble
Yeah.
around you. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
none of that good stuff
Yeah,
is rippling out from
exactly.
you, right? You're just like this placid little lake. Um, yeah, and there's so much more we could be doing
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
ourselves, for our families, yeah, but the
Yeah.
folks around us too.
Absolutely. And I think another thing too that I find always so interesting, like, and I don't want to bring up like a negative subject, but I'm going to bring it up. No, it's not really a negative, but I think there's a lot of always, and especially now, given the climate that we're in, there's a lot of like fear of like, oh, what if I lose my job? And I'm like,
Yeah.
honestly, sometimes that is, I mean, sometimes that's a blessing. And I'm not saying I wish that upon
Hmm.
anybody, but sometimes, like, I feel like there's like always such a negative connotation with that. It's like, yes, of course, it's devastating. I've been let go from jobs before. It's
Hmm.
never fun.
Hmm.
Never fun. I don't want to like live there. But like if I look at it, I just look back at like it's so funny when you like they say hindsight's 2020. Like I look back at a career that I had when I in my marketing career, and I worked for a company that they closed our office. We had a little satellite office, and they closed our
Hmm.
office, and we were given like packages if we wanted to move to Tennessee to work there, and I decided not to because I'm from New Jersey, and I was like, I can't be in a landlocked state. Like that just sounds crazy to me. I'm like, if we're not like by an ocean, like I don't think I could do it. I was like, "Where's the closest beach to Tennessee?" They're like, "Oh, Florida." I'm like, "No." I'm like, I'm like, hell no. Anyway, but like I like at the time, like I was super upset, obviously, because I had such
Yeah,
great relationships there, and it was just a great
yeah,
environment. But like that, I look back on, and that was kind of my catalyst to like change.
yeah,
Like, and my next two companies I went to in marketing were like awful, and I had it like, and that's kind of what brought me to like where I am now. So like you do look back and you're like, huh, like I know
yeah,
it sounds so cliche to say, but like everything ends up working out. It's just maybe
yeah,
not how you
yeah.
envisioned it or the plan or whatever.
Right, right. No, I love that. I was just talking to somebody earlier this week, and she said, like, if you don't listen to the universe doing these little whispers in your life, she goes, you better watch out because you'll get like whacked, right? Like, whoa, that big wake
Yep.
up call. And sometimes that is a layoff, or then we jump into something and it's like, oh, what
Yeah,
did
like
I
why did I
do?
move so
Like,
quickly? Yeah, yeah, like yeah.
yikes, like this is not me. And so I think sometimes that, taking the opportunity when we have that luxury to like, okay, let's just sit for a moment, grieve the loss of that
Of
job and that
course.
one
Yeah.
future that isn't going to be there anymore, and think about like, okay, how can you use this to your advantage, right? How do you use this time to really recenter, reevaluate, and make sure that you're all lined up with your goals, and you know where you're headed. It can be great. And I think when people have that, like I've seen people go through, we call it discovery when you're
Yeah.
you're looking at businesses and, is entrepreneurship for you, where they're like, yeah, I've had folks who are in that discovery and then they go to a job interview and tell me, oh, I was sitting there and I was like, there's no way I'm gonna like, I don't want any part of this. And I'm like, oh, like,
Yeah, yeah, and
oh,
that's a great sign. That's a
yeah,
great
that's
signal.
or vice versa when you're in discovery with business and go, oh my
Yeah,
gosh, I
like
don't
you
want to
just
do this all
feel
day. It's like, all right, that's good. Like we can shut some doors and focus in then on the paths that are appealing and attractive. But the key is being open to that discovery and finding the why and really being honest with yourself. Is this is this the success I want, or do I need to redefine that
and
a bit?
you're the person that gets to define. I mean, that's the beauty, I think,
Yeah,
of
yeah,
the world we live in today is that while yes, there are societal pressures, peer pressure, fill in the blank pressure, the beauty of it
uh-huh.
is you get to a point in your life that you're like, this is my definition of success. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. Like that to me is like when you get to that place, you're just like, we're good. Like
Yeah,
yeah,
right,
like,
right.
it's just like I'm like, I hope we
Ultimate
get there one day.
adulthood, where
Yeah.
you're like, I'm
Yeah, we're
making
like,
my
I'm like,
own,
you
I'm
can
doing my own thing.
yeah, and I say this about myself is like because I think I struggle with this because I said I do a lot of inner work and I've come to the realization that I will only connect and be really understood by people that do similar things and work that I do. So, and it's okay, like find your tribes, like find your
Yeah, yeah,
communities where you fit in like
yeah,
that. And it's okay to have differences, but the true people that like your core crew or your inner circle, if you will,
Hmm.
Because they say we're like the sum of the five people we spend the most time with. I keep that in mind. I'm like, oh my God, like that's what determines your success in life or whatever.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, no, I'm very mindful of the like kind of the cheerleaders or potential critics around
Yeah,
me
yeah,
because I always say somebody that's doing more for you, more than you, will never criticize you. It's always unfortunately the people doing less. And I also
yeah,
too come from the camp of like why can't we all support one another? Because it like life is hard. Like navigating
yeah.
your career is not. I also want to validate for everybody. Navigating your career is not easy. Like I feel like
No.
we're told when we're younger, like yeah, you just gotta get a job, and then you just like no, like like thankfully you have coaches like you and stuff like
Hmm.
that. But it is difficult to navigate, especially if you don't have a mentor, if you don't have
Hmm. Hmm.
somebody there or maybe a direct boss that you can rely on or have a good relationship with.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's very isolating sometimes to be on that journey alone.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think like when we find ourselves in places like that alone, I don't know if you'd agree, Danielle, like I think then that's a real sign to us like, okay, danger,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like, all right, time to reevaluate and get a new plan because there are so many communities out there.
absolutely.
As you were talking, I'm like, oh, the five people that I hang out most with, I'm like, those weren't the same people that I hung out with when I worked in corporate, right? Like,
Absolutely.
I didn't even know these people existed, and they're my best buds and my
I love
go-tos,
it. I
right?
love it.
Yeah, so sometimes you have no idea even like, oh, there's all kinds of pools we could be playing in. Um,
I
but
love that for you too.
we've got to be open.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you have to be open. And I think that's the shared vision. I'm finding there's one quality in every because I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs that we share, and it's that we're not afraid of risk. That is the one, like, I mean, there's very hard workers, there's passionate people. Like I could list all the things, but that is the one single thing when you decide to like start from something from scratch you are taking a huge risk on yourself, and that is the one thing that like I think that if we brought that more into people in the I said
Yeah.
I'm not saying everybody needs to become an entrepreneur, but if maybe people got a little bit more risky and savvy and didn't come from a fear-based
Yeah.
approach to their career,
Yeah.
think about what could happen. Think about the doors
I
that open for you.
I completely agree. Well, because I think it gets a little addictive, right? Like where you're like, "Ooh, I saw that even if I kind of screwed up, like I lived, like it was okay."
Yeah,
You
like
know, or
yeah, I got
like
up. Like yeah, like I got up
people
from
still
that. Yeah.
supported me. Like, "Oh, I could try a little bit more and risk in new ways and really challenge yourself."
For sure.
In not just the financial or business way, but be riskier about your relationships or your mentors or those
Yeah,
communities that you join. And it can be tremendously rewarding, but
absolutely.
really addicting too, like where then you're looking for opportunities to try those new
Yeah,
things,
right. Well, I will
right?
say, like, and that's another thing, like, I want to, because, like, being, like, I always say with my mental health, with anybody dealing with anything mental health, I'm like, there is no shame in asking for help. And the same goes with your career, too. Like, there is no,
Yeah.
like, ask for
Well,
help.
and probably somebody else has been through it, right? Or multiple
Exactly.
people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think you'd be surprised of what we're saying. Like if you just tap into a little bit into your network or a friend of a
Hmm.
friend or or even if you're in your organization and just, I remember I used to do this because I was naturally curious and also just like wanted to gain more
Hmm.
relationships in when I was in corporate, I would like just like meet with somebody outside of my team, outside my department, just to be like, hey, like I just want to learn more about what you do. I have no idea what you do. And like you never know what could it is maybe a
Yeah.
15-minute Zoom call. And you don't know
Yeah.
what could
Yeah.
happen from that. And a lot of the times people are really receptive to it, especially like in my opinion, like good leaders, like people that are like if
Yeah.
you are let's say
They
individual
want to
contributor,
help.
Yeah, and
They
then
want
they
to help.
maybe reach out to like a C. Like that happened to me even at even at awful companies. That like and like actually it's very because you think like, oh, they're a C-suite executive, they're not going to want to talk to me. Like no, they're actually very receptive to it, I've found in my
Yeah,
experience.
yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. And I think, people generally I believe want to help. They
Yeah,
want to share what they know. They don't want to hang on to that too hard. But also I think, all of us need to feel like we can relate, right? So
absolutely.
when you're vulnerable about like, oh, it's really hard to be a working mom, or
Hmm.
it's really hard to do a lot of business travel, that kind of thing. That start like I talk to laid off people who are like, oh my gosh, I must be the only person who ever felt, so terrible about. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah,
Like
like I don't know you. I
I'm
can
like,
talk. I have
look at my
lines of people that
calendar
feel
this
the same
week,
way as
right?
you.
Like, unfortunately, you have a lot of comrades, right? And we all feel the
Yeah,
same thing
yeah.
when we get laid off. No
Yeah,
matter when and where we were laid off from, like you have those commonalities. And so I think tapping into some of that too is like,
yeah, like
okay,
support.
yeah, like they got through it, I'll get through it. They're thriving, you hear stories, it's inspirational.
Absolutely. Well, Stacey, this has been such I could talk about, I always say with all my podcast guests, I'm like, I could like talk literally for like 8 hours a day, like a whole work day, but we all have things to do and also Thanksgiving's right around the corner. So we want to make sure,
Right.
we have some rest and everything. But Stacey's website for those who are interested is entrepreneursource.com. And I see you are on all the social channels on, Facebook,
Yeah.
LinkedIn, everything, Google Maps, everything. So as I said, reach out to Stacy if you would like her coaching services, especially now I'm sure there's a lot of people listening that would benefit from. And thank you so much, Stacy. It was been a pleasure
Thank
talking
you.
to you.
Great conversation.
Yes,
Thanks so much.
of course.